Good evening. Anybody who's chiming in or anybody else who views this recording later. So I just want to take tonight I'm taking a little break from the gaming for the evening. Um, the main reason is just I just want to spend tonight kind of talking a little bit about myself and kind of share my story a little bit so anybody who does follow me or is watching my videos kind of gets some better idea of who I am and why Links to the Past is my name and kind of my story as far as gaming and how I grew up and why gaming and my passion for it exists for me. So that's kind of I'm going to be talking through that for a little bit this evening and hopefully not be on too long, but hopefully this just through sharing and through getting some video out there about this, it'll just help. So yeah, my actual name is Sawyer. I live in Colorado. That's where I currently reside, in a good place. I like where I live. As you can see, I've got all my wonderful nerd stuff behind me, my bow up here, and Assassin's Creed picture over there. I'm a big nerd, in case anybody hasn't noticed. But yeah, I've been meaning to do this for a while. I've been meaning to kind of share a little bit about myself for a while now, and I don't have any script right now that I'm going off of, but hopefully it just kind of echoes and makes sense and just kind of being myself on the camera. So I grew up playing video games and kind of having a good time and was a pretty happy child. And I grew up in Colorado in the mountains. Learned how to ski, all that fun stuff. But at a pretty early age, I lost my dad to cancer. He smoked for a long part of his life and just had a long battle with lung cancer, and it ended up being fatal. So I lost my dad pretty young. And at the age of 12, when you lose a parent, anybody who has lost a parent who doesn't, who's experienced grief during that time in their life, it's hard. It is very difficult because your emotions and your emotional intelligence aren't really there yet, and it's really hard to process, to understand what it all means and how your life will be different. By that time in my life, my siblings, who are much older than I am, were already graduated and kind of out in the life doing their own thing. So my adolescence was very different than theirs. And a good portion of my adolescence to process this grief was spent in fictional worlds. In gaming, in books here and there. I wasn't a big reader, but mostly in the world of gaming and movies. So my first actual console that was mine was the Nintendo 64, and it was a blast. I remember getting it for my birthday, and it was such a great time. And I really just enjoyed like the games themselves, but by far Ocarina of Time. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time was so timeless and so special, and I'm so thankful that game came out when it did. Because that game, I played it so long and looked up so much magazine and articles and tried to figure out how to do it, how to solve the puzzles, talked to so many friends, and the challenge and the adventure of Ocarina of Time was a really big deal. And to this day, I am a firm believer that the fictional world of video games and or books, depending on what you prefer, is helpful to those suffering from mental health issues, depression, PTSD. There's ways to approach what you've experienced and kind of face the world outside in a fictional world. Now, just like any habit, any medication, for lack of better terms, too much of it can be bad, right? And just like any other thing, too many video games and too much time spent in a fictional world can be bad. But in this case, I would say like in moderation, and seeing myself through the character of Link in Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time was a great tool to help me visualize my life. Just like in every hero's story, hero arc, as in Ocarina of Time, Link starts out as a pretty basic Kokiri kid and doesn't have a fairy yet, but he's kind of an outsider from his group and kind of a not accepted by most of the people around him. And I was the same way. I was in high school and middle school, and I was a nerd. I didn't fit in with anybody. Even the nerd culture didn't really like me. just because I was a little goofy and I wasn't as witty or smart as some of the other kids. And I played card games and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh during those years, and my deck strategy wasn't that great, and so I didn't fit in with the nerds that well. I played soccer for most of my life, and I didn't fit in with those people that well, the jock crowd that well. And so most of my life, I was always felt kind of outcast. I always felt kind of on the edges of society in some way, much like I'm sure Link must have felt. And the beauty of that game is that Link, in case you never played it, Link never has a voice, and he's never had a voice in any of the games that he's been in. And I've heard this from the creators of Zelda and Nintendo, that the reason behind that is so that the player can put themselves into that monologue or into those decisions a whole lot more and really imprint themselves onto the character. And that was especially easy for me because, much like how Link existed in his village when he's a kid, I felt the same way, and my village is. And then, Link gets a calling, right? He gets a voice from the forest, and it's the Great Deku Tree, and or Deku, however you pronounce it. And Link sees this Great Deku Tree and gets a call to action, gets a thing to do, gets a mission that he's called out to do. And he has a choice, right? He can either choose to go back into his tree and to just kind of live, on the edge of society, or he can respond to the calling and move forward and see what this calling has for him. And obviously, if you played the game, Link decides to just go. He starts learning things. He gets his sword. He gets a shield. He survives things, gets his first few puzzles out of the way, and then he's off to the rest of Hyrule and to save the princess and to navigate the puzzles of time, to navigate all the dungeons and all the darkness. And his whole goal is to rid Hyrule of evil and save the sages out there, right? So it's a great game. If you've never played Ocarina of Time, it's still by far, I think, one of the best 3D games ever made, from as far as story and design go. And anybody can fight me on that if they want to. I'm happy to debate that. But even Breath of the Wild and all the new Zelda games made, Ocarina of Time was still timeless for what it was. So that game, really, when I was in that adolescence without a father, without really a lot of super close friends, Ocarina of Time was a great tool to imprint myself onto Link and to allow a visualization of going into the world and solving my own puzzles, solving my own issues, facing my own battles, and getting my swords in specific ways, like getting my weapons and getting my tools and getting the things I need to accomplish tasks. And it was a super just helpful first step. And I think anybody who struggles with depression or identity issues or connecting with people, I feel like connecting with characters in a fictional world is a very helpful place to do that. And yeah, eventually you do have to be able to take those skills and those connections and those abilities from that fictional world and bring them into the real world. And hopefully, you learn how to navigate those things with your actual friends, with your family, with a partner, anybody like that. So the Ocarina of Time being my first main Zelda game was a big deal for me. And I, to this day, am so thankful to Nintendo and the creators and the writers of The Legend of Zelda for just keep making great games, keep doing that. And obviously, throughout the rest of my adolescence, lots of questions around who I was, but stepping out of my door, finding my call to action, my calling, my mission, was a journey, and it still is every single day. That's why I like streaming. That's why I like gaming, and I like taking the lessons I learned in those places and putting them into the real world, and vice versa. And that's where I really found my faith. So I was raised in kind of a Christian-esque household, but I didn't really have a great community of anything of that nature when I was growing up. And it wasn't until probably in my mid-20s, or probably college era is when I first decided to get baptized and go through that choice faith. But I came to Christ, I felt like, in high school. And that's where I was ready to basically end my life. I won't go into too much detail about that, but I'll save another night for that discussion or that monologue. But I came to Christ in a very low, dark place in my life, and that's kind of the story for a lot of people. And it wasn't. So after that point happened, I didn't know what to do with it, right? Obviously, similarly to Link, I got a call on my heart to keep going, to keep fighting, whatever that sounds like, whatever that looks like. And I wasn't sure what my mission was at the moment, obviously, and I still am trying to figure most of that out even in my adulthood. But in college is where I really found my faith. And the foundation of who I was and the identity of being a man of Christ and a man of God all kind of got rooted through a lot of different things, a lot of great groups, a lot of studies, a lot of Bible studies. And I went to CU Boulder. That was where I was doing my college undergrad. And I had a great community there. Because of what happened with my dad at an early age, I stayed away from drugs, all sorts of any substance. I just didn't want to be a part of it. So that's where the church community was a really great place for me, because I could still have friends and make connections and still have closeness with the people around me, but not have to engage in anything of that nature. So it was a great time, and I had pretty good friends and a good community for a while. But yeah, so the foundation of my faith was really, really built in college. And then when I went through my 20s, I'm 34 now, but I went through my 20s and had a interesting time, because you know that thing that happened back in middle school when I was 12, my dad dying? Well, all the emotions and all the stuff that took place that I couldn't process during those years of my life started to really come back up in my adulthood, in my 20s, because I left college, I was going out on my next calling, I was going to the next dungeon of adulthood, if you want to call it that from the Zelda perspective, and had a really good time trying to navigate a job and changing careers and all sorts of messes of financial stuff, and trying to keep my girlfriend at the time happy and satisfied and fulfilled in what she was doing, and trying to be a good leader in those senses. But it was very challenging, because I never had a strong male father figure to kind of set up masculinity for me. And so when I was 24, 25, I was just getting out of a very bad relationship, very toxic, very heavy, and there was lots of danger and lots of darkness there. But the only way I survived that was because of God, and I got closer to that relationship. But after that toxic relationship ended, I had a really, really open, weird time where I just missed my dad, and I was very hopeless and confused, and I was like, there's so much in my life, and I didn't understand my dad's intentions. I never understood how much my dad cared about me before he died. And so I got to experience the journal of my father for the last year of his life. I didn't know that existed for a while, not by anybody's fault. It was my family thought that I'd gotten a copy of it, but I didn't. And so I got that journal to me, and I got to read it, and it was very cool. It was almost like, I don't know if in any Zelda story if Link ever has a true father or parental presence, but it was almost like I grew up and I went through these outskirts of society and was an outsider, an outcast in some ways, and then I read my dad's journal for the last year of his life, and I saw how much he cared about me, and I saw how much value I had, despite what people will say, despite what people will tell me, despite what I was telling myself when it came to a relationship that I was in that was very unhealthy for me. And I've always considered my value based on my faith, because if you read the Bible or you go through any of that process, there's a lot of discussions about who you are in Christ and how he loves you and how that relationship works. But it didn't really dawn on me, it didn't really get super strong until I really saw how much my first father, or my earthly father, really cared about me and had a lot of love for me, even when I was 12, when I was super young and had very little to contribute to his life. And my depression was all rooted in being a burden on people. I don't know if anybody else struggles with that anywhere, but my biggest struggle for most of my life with depression was, I don't want to be a burden on this person or on my mom or these people, so it'd be easier if I wasn't here. And that became a very constant voice in my head. And especially when I was in that relationship, that was really bad for me. But having that time to dissect the way my father loved me and the way my earthly father cared about me and, wanted good things for me in such a great way through that journal gave me a whole new perspective of our Father God. Like, me seeing God as a father became very clear at that point, and I was able to truly see, how important it is that me as a man of God and a father figure to anybody, or as just a husband or a brother or a friend or whoever, whatever male role I play in my life, how I can be very, how I can love people the same way that God loves me. And regardless of what a person is or who the world says they are or what kind of story they have, seeing people the same way God does, as loved and worthy and just so everlasting in a sense how love goes. And it's been a great struggle so far since then, but like in my 20s, experiencing that in a new way was very special and very inspiring. And again, it was another level up, if I would say that. And from a nerd perspective, I leveled up into a new character, new class, whatever you want to call it. And I started to really understand a little bit more about my faith, my identity, who I was as a son of God, a son of a father. And I still had issues with people and dating, relationships. I'm still single, I'm 34. But going through the experience was great, and I'm very thankful that I was able to do that. Now in my adulthood, my further adulthood, I've still made plenty of mistakes, and I always tell folks, do as I say, not as I do. I've made so many mistakes when it comes to relationships, it's not even funny. I've dated the wrong people, the wrong choices. I've hurt people, they've hurt me. But it's just been a journey, and to this day, I thank God every single day that He has shown me so much about my identity, about who I am, who He says that I am. I'm not just a nerd. I'm so many things. And that's where playing games and being a gamer and being everything that He's created me to be has been super special. You can't see my whole apartment right now, but I have a Master Sword right next to me on the wall. I've got some Lord of the Rings things right there. I've got all my stuff behind me from Breath of the Wild and Captain America and Snake Eyes and stuff. There's so much about my uniqueness and everyone else's uniqueness that they should never have to deny. Obviously, when it comes to hurting people and when it comes to making bad choices or things that lead to death and sin, as it's defined, those things aren't who we are. We are created in goodness and those kind of areas. But as far as the things that make your heart up for what it is, and make your heart be filled and make your spirit just kind of be at home and at peace, those things are truly you, and you should never ever have to get rid of those things for somebody, least of all your creator, right? And so I love the fact that I get to play games and use gaming as a great way to, in a sense, glorify my God. And whether that's Nintendo games like on the Switch, like Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, great game. So excited that game won Best Action Game of the Year, I think. And then whether that's playing Zelda or Metroid, as I've been doing, or any other Switch game or any other game I've ever streamed, I'm so thankful that I get to do that and not have to get rid of those things for anybody. God created great things, and He knows your heart. He knows who you are and how your soul thrives. And I just want to say to anybody else who's a gamer, a nerd, and you've always maybe turned away from the church, you felt like Christians or even the church community has not been a support network for you because of, oh, you're lazy, you're a gamer, you don't live in the real world, or whatever the church might say in some sense. I just want to say, anybody who's experienced that, that's not how church is. Jesus wants you to be who you are, and that includes the things that you enjoy. As long as they're within the realms of, helping people, supporting people, not hurting people or not destroying lives, or as long as you're in the market of spreading joy across the world and spreading whatever it is that brings you happiness and light, he wants that to happen more. And so there's so much that I've learned about Christianity and identity, and how gaming and how the fictional world of Marvel, Disney, Nintendo, every other software company out there that makes games or anything like that can be such a great tool to connect people. And believe it or not, the stories and the analogies and the metaphors that are in the Bible are all over video games and all over Marvel movies and fictional stories everywhere. A good example of this is the hero's journey, right? Talk about Link in Zelda. Starts out small, goes through this arc, goes through all these things, and the whole point of a hero is that they sacrifice themselves for the betterment of others, right? Link, he takes on the calling to save Hyrule countless times over and over again. In order to do that, he has to go face dark things. He has to go into spiritual warfare. It's the whole battle of good versus evil. And what I love about that is, biblically, that's the same thing Jesus did. Jesus is a great hero. He might not be as typical as the heroes you might see in wars or in earthly problems or earthly struggles. But Jesus was born, he lived a life, he was a teenager just like all of us. He went through struggles and adolescence and puberty and all that gross fun stuff. But at the same time, he had a calling from his father. And the calling, was to, at the end, sacrifice his life so that every single one of us would have victory over death, over evil, over Satan, over any darkness in this world. And so, because of that sacrifice, I have a tattoo on my arm here of the Master Sword. And there's a verse, Romans 8:39, is tattooed right there on the blade. And it's the summation of that verse is basically, it says, nothing on this earth can ever separate us from the love of our God. And whether sword, shield, famine, it goes through a whole list of things in the prior verses. But to that same sense, the first hero's story was Jesus. He gets a calling, he goes out, he learns more about the Bible, he learns about his powers, he learns about what he can do, he makes friends, he escapes enemies, he fights against things at the right time, he solves puzzles, and at the end of the day, he ultimately conquers death. And if that's in its purest form, that is spiritual warfare. And we are called in the same sense. We are fighting against darkness in this earth every single day. If you want to hear about that, look at the news. Look anywhere you are. We are fighting against enemies of the the darkness all the time. Whether it is actual physical people, which I don't always believe it is. I do think that the enemy, Satan himself, has a strong presence in a lot of this world, but we are still called to put on our armor, level up, get smarter, get more wise, seek out wisdom, seek out friends, seek out your party. Like D&D, you seek out your teammates and your other roles to play, and you go against the darkness, and you go into battle, and you go on the adventure, and you use your skills and your tools and all of your stuff to level up and to win and to survive at times, and it's all a great metaphor. And anybody who thinks that there's no connection between the hero's journey in the Bible and video games and fictional worlds in general, it's just not true. the original hero's journey was written in the Bible, and I love talking about it because it's so easy to miss. And so every hero we hear about in every video game and every movie and I love Lord of the Rings. Look at Frodo. It's all about that hero taking on a task that is way beyond themselves and thriving off the people around them, and thriving off their teams and the love of the people around them, and then conquering in some way the darkness, either the darkness is inside them or the darkness is out in the world or somewhere. And it's just a really fascinating story. So I love the fact that gaming now, or else has always in a sense been there. And I just want to encourage anybody who's experienced depression or loss or just has the battle with darkness on a regular basis. And just remember that just like any fictional character in any book or movie or video game, you have the power, you have the strength, and you have a wonderful team and a wonderful supporter in your corner. Sometimes it's a friend, sometimes it's, a song, sometimes it's a character, sometimes it just shows up as Jesus. And that person in my life, Jesus, has been there in my corner, and he never has left. It provides counsel, provides direction, and I just know, the more that I try to solve problems on my own, it doesn't work. I think in most games, to solve a problem or to solve a puzzle, you need a guide, or you need some sort of hint or some sort of direction, whether it's an actual physical book guide that you've used, or it's a website that you've looked up, or it's a person in the game who kind of says, hey, you should go here to check out this thing. The story keeps moving because this person, or because this variable in the game says, oh, you should go do this. It gives you direction, right? Because if you didn't, if you play, I don't know, Skyrim or heck, Tears of the Kingdom, it's very easy to get lost, right? It's very easy to just get distracted by that thing and get lost by so many different elements in the game. Not that they're bad, but if you have a mission to save Zelda, or to save the land or whatever, you usually are going to need people to help you along the way. And that's the beauty. That's also the same in real life, right? I learned from a pretty early phase of my 20s that the aspect of trying to solve life on my own, I'm always gonna fail. I'm never gonna succeed. I'm not gonna be fulfilled. I might succeed in an earthly standard and make a lot of money, find success, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to be that person who says, or who's oh, I think I should do it this way. And then before I know it, I'm heartbroken, depressed, lost, broke, confused, whatever you want to call it. And I got to that point in my 20s, and I was like, God, I give up. I do not know how to do this life. I'm going to give it all to you, and I'm going to try to seek out what your direction is for me. And that's always been the intention. We're not supposed to go through this life alone. We're not supposed to go through this life lost, without direction. And everyone says, oh, the Bible's this thing that just kills all the fun. I disagree. I used to have that same perspective. Anything that's taught in the Bible, and again, it comes down to your choice of if you want to believe it or not. But anything that's taught in the Bible, if you look at the right context, it's taught with the intention that you could do it this way. That's totally fine. You're welcome to. And you're probably going to get hurt. You're probably going to get destroyed. You're probably going to fail. That's your choice. Or you could do it this way, and you might not succeed right away, but you'll feel fulfilled in your life. You'll feel like you accomplished the thing. You tried your hardest. Take marriage. Great example. We live in a culture where, marriage is half of marriage and then a divorce. Statistics, right? Pretty common across America, at least. Well, and there's lots of things for marriage in the Bible, and lots of discussions we could have always about that. But in reality, if you follow those paths in the Bible about marriage and about relationships, you're going to get called to do things that are uncomfortable, that are hard, that are difficult, and probably against society. But if you want a successful marriage, like one of the things they talk about in the Bible is that the man should cherish and love your spouse the way the way that Christ loved the church, and Christ laid down his life gladly for the church, aka not like the building but the people. And so in the same sense, the husband is meant to love and cherish the wife the same way, aka lay down your life for that person. And so yes, that means you put other things aside to go serve your wife, your spouse, and you happily do it. That's the thing. That it's not about a begrudging, oh, I have to do this, I'm obligated. It's you happily give your life for this person. And if we had treated marriage as if divorce wasn't an option, because that's really what it was meant to, imagine how different our choices would be. Imagine how much more seriously we'd take the decision to marry somebody. There's so much in there. So again, the Bible is just in my life. Every time I've tried to do something that is not in it and go against what Jesus taught, it's always led to more heartbreak, more pain, more confusion, more depression. But when I let go of my pride and my ego and listen to what this Bible is telling me to do, ultimately, my relationships improve, my friendships get better, my perspective on the world gets better. It's just a different thing. And I'm a logical thinker. If you talk to anybody in my work, where I'm from, how I've grown up, I used to be emotions based, but I'm very logical now. And I just can't explain any other way than this makes sense. If I want to have a better life, this is where I get. And that includes, it doesn't mean I stop gaming. Everyone thinks that if I want to be this Christian person, they have to give up all the stuff they love. Yes, bad habits are bad habits. Smoking, drinking. But the first miracle Jesus did was making water into wine at a wedding. And it wasn't crappy wine, it was great wine. You're still supposed to have a good time in your life. That's not a fun killer. I have a great time in my life. I enjoy my nerd stuff. I enjoy my life. I enjoy spending money on swords and nerd posters and archery and all sorts of goofy things and video games. But I'm also called to be wise with my money and be wise with my habits. So I'm not going to spend hours upon hours gaming. I should get out and go enjoy the world, enjoy the creation, and have fun doing other things as well. And so that doesn't mean, if you like your drinking, still do it. That's not a bad thing. Just be careful how much you do it and how much this thing becomes your focus versus other things. So that's one of the misconceptions is I can be a Christian and still enjoy gaming and nerd culture, and I love Harry Potter, and I have a Lord of the Rings tattoo. It's literally, you can't really see it that well. I apologize. But I have a Lord of the Rings tattoo. I have a Master Sword on my arm with a Bible verse on it. You don't have to give up the things that make you who you are. If anything, those things that make you who you are Christ's glorious design in you. And that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned, is that I don't have to be ashamed of who I am. I don't have to be ashamed of my nerdiness, my joys, my passions, whatever you want to call them. I love science. I love exploring things, and I love mysteries and escape rooms and all those things. You don't have to give up these things that you think that the church would tell you to. You just got to think about how you're using them. And so am I using gaming to escape from the real world? Sometimes yes, because the real world sucks. There's a lot of crap happening across the real world, especially in America. I just know because that's where I live. But I know we all have darkness. We all have depression. We all have mental struggles in some other way. And if I use video games to give myself the ability to fight back, absolutely I'm going to play them. if I can escape into a fictional world for a little bit and see the battle of good versus evil and see good win more like every time basically, I'm gonna do that because I want to remind myself that it's still possible because it's already happened because Jesus already defeated death, and we sometimes need to remind ourselves that good has already won. And that's the beauty of video games. That's my beauty for them. I love connecting. I love diving deep into those games and succeeding over evil, because it reminds me that I can do that. I can do so. And every time I win, every time I defeat the darkness, it did not happen alone. It happened with friends. It happened with other characters in a game. It happened with my party, with help from others. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about my thoughts and feelings on gaming, where I've been, again, where my depression stemmed from about being a burden on other people. I've been shown by my friends, my closest loved ones, that they gladly accept the burdens I give because they love me. That's part of the process. And that's part of love, is you're willing to accept that person's burdens and give them yours. And so my best friends, and believe it or not, Jesus himself too, has already taken my burden. And so it's okay that I give it to him and I can then live without it. So I just want to, that's what I wanted to say tonight. And I'm just going to post this obviously on Twitch, and then I'll post this on YouTube and just share my story out there. I hope this reaches somebody, and that there's another gamer or nerd out there who needs to hear that they're okay, that they're good, that if they enjoy the fictional world of gaming, the church, God loves them for who they are and encourages them to find that battle and to enjoy that adventure. And hopefully that adventure can then apply to their real life, and they can go out there and slay dragons and equip themselves with the best armor and live out that dream of fighting against the deepest, darkest bad things, because there are deep, dark, bad things in this world, and we can fight them in many, many ways. And I'll tell you, the best weapon is Jesus. And so that's a little bit of my story. Maybe I'll do another night if people want to hear it. I'll do another night sometime where I talk more about that, about a little bit about my adolescence and depression in high school and college a little bit about the struggles I had with relationships in my 20s and the bad one that happened. But overall, I just want people to know that when it comes to faith and gaming, they're not separate. They're a together thing, just like peanut butter and jelly. Together, they are great together. They're still pretty good separate, but faith and gaming can come together for a great reason. It can help a lot of people, especially if churches understand the beauty of video games and how that can be such a great tool for those who might be struggling and with depression or mental health issues. And I'm happy to answer any questions or always get feedback and hear more about people's struggles. So if you ever want to chat, feel free to message, or feel free to just on YouTube post, follow me. I'm happy to just share more information, and obviously in the context of gaming, we'll always be ready to fight the next battle and enjoy the next adventure. So appreciate my one viewer right there. Glad you're here. And other than that, though, just so thankful for the chance to share this story, and I hope it reaches out to somebody who might need to hear it. So thank you all, and have a great night. I'll plan to be on next week. Oh, I do want to say this is a hard season for a lot of people, especially if you are single and you don't have a lot of family in town. I know that pain. So those who are struggling with that situation right now, just know I'm praying for you, and know that you're never truly alone, and we'll get through this season together, gaming and having fun, so whatever that looks like. So I will try to be on next week. I believe Thursday is the 21st. I believe, yes. So I'll probably be on playing Metroid next week. I think we're at the last few steps of it to get the heat ray and a couple other things. So I'm excited to keep going on that game and debating what game to play next. I might play Octopath Traveler 2 that just came out, or recently came out. So we'll see it there. If there's any games people suggest for the Switch that they want to see have a run through, I'm happy to do that too. But yeah, hope you all have a great night and are having a great holiday season, whether you are surrounded by family and friends and your partner, or if you're just hanging out alone and streaming and gaming. So happy to talk to you all and happy to have listeners and viewers. Thank you all.